A recent Vice article unmasked a 29-year-old Brookings resident as a, quote, neo-Nazi podcaster.
In a story you will only see on Dakota News Now, Cordell Wright meets with him as well as other groups who are speaking out against the hate and division they say he promotes. Cordell, good evening.
Good evening, Andrea and Bailey. His name is Regan Shear, and his podcast is called Acton Amerikaner, where he says he's advocating for white people by hosting members of organizations associated with a white supremacist movement.
On my website, I advocate for white people, specifically for people of the upper Midwest. We refer to ourselves usually as Amerikaners in reference to kind of Germanic, Scandinavian heritage.
Regan Shear discusses a wide variety of topics on his website, from what he calls the Ohio disaster cover-up to hosting longtime neo-Nazi Billy Roper, as well as interviewing members of the Ku Klux Klan.
The argument that people in the media give is that people like me are rude to members of other races or are discriminatory. My argument is, if being discriminatory is the problem, why are these other groups, why are they not censured in the same way that I am? And the answer is simple. Discrimination isn't actually what anyone cares about. What they care about is making sure that white people don't have a sense of unity and don't have a sense of shared purpose. And that's the purpose of my site now.
Prior to the Vice article, Regan was an employee of Bell Brands USA. Since its release, Shear says the article was passed on to his family members and he was let go from his job.
In this country, we are, at least in theory, supposed to be allowed to speak whatever we want, as long as you aren't advocating for illegal activity or violence. But apparently that's not the case, because if you say certain things that are lawful and legal, you get fired. But if you say other things, you don't. And those things are entirely based upon whether or not you are the correct race or have the correct political opinions. I think that that's unjust.
As a result of the news that Shear's podcast is taking place right here in South Dakota, several organizations have formed a coalition to speak out against white supremacy, including South Dakota Voices for Peace.
As soon as I read it, I got sick to my stomach. And my first thought was my son, being a 9-year-old Jewish boy, what kind of hate he's going to experience in his future when somebody so close to home is perpetuating such disgust.
Matilda Oppenheimer, the treasurer at Mount Zion Congregation in Sioux Falls, is one generation removed from the Holocaust. Her grandparents are believed to have been killed in a concentration camp before her father escaped during World War II. She believes Shear's podcast is dangerous.
It absolutely just ties me in knots. For someone to willfully try to roil up hatred toward another group of people, he's using words, not necessarily actions, but whom he's inciting to action. It's horrible to think about it. It's the kind of thing that keeps one awake at night.
In the article, it describes you as both a racist and a neo-Nazi. Would you agree with those statements?
I don't identify as a neo-Nazi, and I also don't view the term racist as being a useful term. It's effectively a slur. I don't know what that term even means. It appears to just be something you use against white people who object to that sort of characterization of our people and our history.
It doesn't matter how you spin it. At the end of the day, he's a racist. He's a white supremacist. He can glamorize it however he wants, but at the end of the day, what he talks about and how he frames his feelings about anybody who is not like him, it is dangerous.
Shear went on to add that he believes Vice's goal when they released the article was to scare him into shutting down the website. He says that he will not do that and instead plans to produce more content. Meantime, Jen Dreisky with South Dakota Voices for Peace hopes to soon hold a roundtable discussion to continue fighting back against hate. Andrea.
All right, Cordell, thank you.